Hey everybody, I'm just holding up my calendar for the month of September for our shift school. This is where I meet with my shift insiders in our classroom, which I'm standing in right now. And if you look at the 6th of September, our topic this morning was food lover. You know, oftentimes we find ourselves using that very powerful emotion of love in affiliation with food. What is that about? You know, food really is fuel. I don't love gasoline or diesel or coal any better than the other. However, certain foods we can actually say something like to die for. You know, I'm dying for, and insert your food of choice, right? Certain foods actually trigger the same neurotransmitters and feel-good compounds that being in love trigger. Food is so intimately tangled in our psyche and our brain's firing power that, we end up feeling the same powerful influence from food as we do from something like being in love. And when I work with our shift insiders, which I do on a daily basis, I intimately can empathize with their feelings of blame, their feelings of shame, their feelings of not enough, their self-loathing, their criticism on themselves. We beat ourselves up for not having the willpower to deny our love for certain foods. And here's where science not only saves lives, but saves our sanity and our sense of self. Because when we understand that we're actually wired for desire, we can take all that subjective self-criticism out of our lives and look at food more objectively rather than subjectively. It's pretty cool. So taking this acronym D.I.E, you know, to love something, love a food, to die for that food, think about a food that you would insert in the end of that sentence. I'm dying for. What would you say at the end of that? Right? Usually it's some kind of sugar kind of food, right? We usually don't say I die for a hard-boiled egg, for example. A hard-boiled egg is fat and protein with a little trace of carbohydrate. We don't usually die for hard-boiled eggs. We usually die for something like macaroni and cheese. I'm dying for some crusty Italian bread. I'm dying for some quinoa and beet salad. I'm dying for some chocolate cake. All of those are carbohydrates because it's sugar that actually triggers the wiring in our brain the same way that love triggers in our brain. So the foods that we die for are carbohydrate foods. And we at Shift Insiders realize that it's not just the conventional sugar bowl kinds of foods like soda and candy. Sure, they're carbohydrates, but the entire spectrum of carbohydrate is a sugar food. That's where it gets really a blurred line. I love that song, Blurred Lines. Well, carbohydrate as a category, all of it breaks down to glucose. So even something like ancient grain, 7-grain whole bread, that just breaks down to glucose the same way sugar breaks down to glucose. I'm using organic honey to sweeten my salad dressing. Same thing as regular sugar. So when people heroically shift from like conventional sugar to something like organic, locally raised honey, we think that we're, getting away with something. We think we're being healthier, but to our body, it's just sugar. So the fact is, when we're dying or loving food, we're really talking about carbohydrate food, any carbohydrate. All your plants are carbohydrate food. Okay, so how does it actually work scientifically? How do we understand that it's not us? It's not our lack of willpower. It's not our lack of discipline. We're not weak and we're not a sinner. We are wired for desire. Well, when we consume any kind of carbohydrate, we get a surge of sugar, glucose. Fruit breaks down to glucose. All vegetables break down to glucose. Glucose is blood sugar. Many people out there might say something like, oh, this food raises my blood sugar, but this food doesn't raise my blood sugar. Okay, well, all we need to remember is that carbohydrate food is blood sugar. It increases blood sugar or raises blood sugar because it actually is blood sugar. So when you're looking at carbohydrates in the buffet, like just say to yourself, okay, that's blood sugar. Okay, cool. So when sugar enters our system, actually, one of the first things that's released from our body and that goes straight to our brain and gives us this sense of pleasure is this neurotransmitter called dopamine. Okay? And dopamine is this sense of satisfaction. You just finished a performance and you got a standing ovation. Dopamine. Okay? Feeling great in your circle of friends, everyone's giving you high fives. Dopamine. Driving fast on a motorcycle. Dopamine. Jumping out of an airplane, which I've never done, nor motorcycled. Dopamine. Okay? Anything involved with a bit of risk and then a reward there. So risk takers who enjoy risky activities are looking for that dopamine hit. Interestingly, those of us with Parkinson's have low dopamine. Our body is craving that. This is why many of us with Parkinson's will have cravings for, carbohydrates, not just sugar. All carbohydrate is sugar. So we will crave any kind of carbohydrate if we are in low dopamine. If I'm a risk taker and I get that high off of that, think about someone doing stunts, right? It feels great to do stunts. Well, I was a gymnast, so I used to get a thrill out of doing stunts. And you get that little dopamine rise, but see, just like any kind of stimuli in our body, we become resistant to it when we're getting it often. And then we need more of it to get the same sense of pleasure and reward. That's why risk takers keep doing further and further and riskier behaviors. Getting that same hit, that fix of pleasure and satisfaction requires more dopamine, more risk taking. So there's that buildup. And the thing about when we have sugar, when we're eating carbohydrate focused, we're always looking for that next thing, always looking for that next hit. So just remember that I can either do something risky outside, right, in my life and get a dopamine hit, or I can eat sugar and get a dopamine hit. There's an argument either way, which one's healthier for us. But the science is that dopamine comes from sugar spikes or just like a adrenaline rush. Okay. The other one is these compounds that are secreted from our body and give us that little boost that alleviates stress and actually helps us to buffer, there's a word, buffer pain. And that's endorphins. Now, endorphins, hold on one second, my pen isn't working. There we go. Endorphins are like a class of compounds that hit the same portion of our brain that opiates do. Some people call endorphins our private internal narcotic. When might we feel of endorphins? You've heard many people having that runner's high, right? They've done the race, they're running or exercising. I know when I'm dancing with my friends in my exercise classes, I'm feeling some endorphins. I'm loving it. Feels great. When we are in some kind of heightened activity, we get an endorphin rush. Think about this. When I'm in my activity, I also have a blood sugar rise because my interest, enthusiasm triggers my liver to release some of its stored glucose into my bloodstream. I get a little bit of a high from that, giving me a little more energy. Well, when we consume sugar, any carbohydrate, that sugar spikes endorphin release. Some other things that spike endorphin release, which I think is really interesting to understand, is even something like gossip. Think about this. Now, when I say gossip, your mind might have went right to negative or destructive conversations, but even constructive, good gossip. I love good gossip, right? Why would our brain want us to engage in gossip? Social interaction, because being connected to other human beings is really good for my survival, right? Very good for my survival. The dopamine endorphin mechanism ensures that we seek and take in sugar It also ensures that we connect with other people, and it ensures that we will be, better equipped to survive. Our body wants to hold on to fuel. Our body wants to have sugar always at the ready to fuel this brain that requires a lot of energy. So we're wired to desire a spike of sugar. We're wired to desire that. And the last one, this middle one, see, these two are very emotional or feelings related, right? This one in the center is the one that's the most powerful for influencing our craving mechanism. Have you ever craved carbohydrates? That's kind of like a silly question because we all do, right? We all have that craving. But insulin is the hormone that's responsible for keeping your blood sugar in check. So when we consume any carbohydrates, not just sugar, any carbohydrate, keep saying that, right? But when we consume carbohydrate is blood sugar. It doesn't raise blood sugar, it is blood sugar. So we obviously have more blood sugar, so it's raised. Well, your pancreas is going to put out proportionally amount directly related to how much blood sugar you just put into your body. That amount of insulin is going to be released by the pancreas because our cells are protected from sugar. We actually have a roadblock. Our cells have a built-in barrier that doesn't let glucose in unless insulin gives the signal. Isn't that powerful? Fatty acids can go into my cells. I can burn ketones and fatty acids without having a barrier. But when it comes to sugar, now our brain doesn't have that barrier because our brain has to be able to access glucose like that. Our brain also operates on fatty acids. However, when it comes to the body, insulin is going to be released to open up the cells, or it signals the cells to open up and allow glucose in. Now, our blood sugar was elevated because we just consumed carbohydrate. Insulin makes sure the sugar gets swept out of our bloodstream, and we have this drop. Blood sugar rose, and then it dropped. It's that drop that triggers that craving for more. Our brain interprets that as, oh my gosh, this person, this gal, is not giving herself fuel, get some more, because sugar burning is so brief, we have to keep refueling. If you're a grazer, you're a sugar burner. If you're eating 6 times a day, you're a sugar burner. If you're thinking about your next meal, you're a sugar burner. If you have incessant thoughts of foods, you're a sugar burner. If you say, I love food, you're probably a sugar burner. Those of us who have reacquainted ourselves to operating on body fat and dietary fat, we don't have the cravings. We're not seeking these dopamine and endorphin hits anymore. We don't need them. We have this even-keeled sense of energy and calm and just not even thinking about food. Now, we always say in our shift group that the best weight loss program is the one where we just forget to eat. Am I right? Give me some of that, please. But this is powerful science to make us aware that it's not about willpower. It's not about discipline. It's not about control. It's not about that you're not enough of anything. It's that you are a human being and your brain is wired to desire. And it leads us to say things like, I'm dying for, insert the carbohydrate food. I hope this sheds some light on perhaps your predicament. And, being smarter is really critical, especially as we get older. We can't work harder. We need to work smarter. And that's what it's all about. Thanks for stopping by, and see you next time.